Over the course of this year, I have made some pretty big mistakes and have experienced failure in ways that I really never have before. A common theme that I'm finding in my self-acceptance work and even my religious trauma recovery journey is that I have to learn to be okay with making mistakes, failure, being wrong, etc. I find that a lot of time people get caught up in semantics about the word. They'll say things like, oh, well, that wasn't a mistake, it was just a happy accident or something like that. And I think coming up with little words like that is fine, but the point is that failure feels like failure and mistakes feel like mistakes. It doesn't really matter whether or not it's real failure or perceived failure. It oftentimes feels the same. And what I mean by this is that, real failure could be like, you aim to shoot a basket into a hole and it misses. Like that is technically like a failure or a miss or something like that. But a perceived failure is like, I set a goal for myself personally to get something done and I don't do it. And so according to my own standards, I've failed or something like that. But the reason why I bring any of this stuff up anyway is that I made a lot of goals in the beginning of 2022. And according to the goals that I made in the beginning of this year, 2022 was a failure. But I can't lie to you because I'm really happy with the way this year turned out. So in this video, I want to talk to you about how to make the most out of your failures. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, my name is Mav and this is Mav Magic. On this channel, I like to talk about spirituality, mental health, gender identity. So if any of that stuff strikes your interest, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like and share it with anyone you think would enjoy it as well. Also, make sure you check out the description to see where else you can find me. And I've also had a couple of people ask me about a Patreon or if I have something like that. And I have finally set it up. So I have now kind of set up a subscription. Okay. I've had a few people ask me about Patreon, if I ever, if I have some type of a subscription or something like that. But I just set up an account with Buy Me a Coffee, which is a place where you can come and support the channel by giving a donation, if that seems like something you would like to do. I am also going to work on doing things like memberships and things like that with perks and all that stuff. But that is obviously not out right now. I just have the basics there. You can also find a link to that in the description below. Okay, let's get into the topic today. So I started this year feeling really optimistic. I was like, 2022 was going to be my year. I was thinking like I had just gotten top surgery. I am, gonna start my coaching business. I am like super spiritual and I'm like raising my vibration and I'm manifesting my wildest dreams and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, by the end of the year, I'm pretty much gonna be a boss. Like there's no question about it. I was very, very confident in myself, which is great. But sadly, a lot of those things didn't happen. I really ended up having a year with quite a lot of challenges, failures, and things like that. But I really did end up making more authentic progress than I had anticipated. What I mean by authentic progress rather than like imagined progress is that I think the progress that I'm making right now is more grounded in reality. It's more grounded in kind of like the goals and skills that I actually have, and less of kind of like spending time on things that are just like not really for me in general. Kind of funny because as a neurodivergent person, I find myself spending a ton of time on side quests. And I do this to kind of quell my hunger for dopamine. And while I do this, I do pick up some really valuable skills. But at the same time, I end up with like a closet full of hobbies that I like no longer spend my time doing anymore. And I really want to make it known that it's important to unshame the process of having detours. Like it really is okay to spend a lot of time on these side quests and things like that. It's also okay to spend time pursuing a dream and then to finding out that it's not what you wanted. Sometimes that happens. Like the only way to know that something is not what you want is by trying it out and feeling it and realizing that it's not for you. So a specific way that this happened for me this year was through kind of my idea of coaching. I was a part of a particular kind of program that taught a particular framework around coaching that I felt like I really didn't resonate with. I ended up learning some like sales tactics that I didn't really like and I didn't really feel comfortable with. And I felt like I did learn some valuable things, but at the same time, I felt like the direction that I was going in that career like was not what I had anticipated. Another issue that I find with the coaching industry is that oftentimes you find people that are selling a lifestyle or kind of like a dream rather than like anything tangible or practical. And that can get really, really messed up in a lot of ways. So I've definitely have distanced myself in a lot of ways from a lot of those things and have discovered more of what I actually want to be doing. There was a part of me that was kind of sick of the clinical world of therapy and wanted to try something different, but I realized that I really miss it so much. I missed it so much. There was a lot about therapy and doing like particularly clinical work that was very intriguing to my brain, and doing kind of intensive research and stuff like that I was kind of missing out on. So I kind of ended up in this space where I was just kind of like feeling pretty crappy. I was feeling really vulnerable. I was feeling really ashamed and embarrassed because I felt like I had spent a lot of time and put a ton of resources into this one particular career path, and I felt like it was kind of really falling apart. There were also a lot of ways that it was like not really financially a stable thing to do, and that was a really, really scary place to be. So eventually I really had to be honest with myself and realize that I needed to make a change. I had to kind of like let go of my pride that kind of thought that I knew everything about how everything works, and just like kind of go back to the drawing board. I ended up spending a lot of time on the job search again, trying to get back into the clinical world, doing therapy. And I felt like really crappy during this time. I felt really ashamed of myself. And I felt like I really had completely like screwed my life up at this point. I left something that was really, really important to me, and I had tried something else, and things really weren't working. That was a really big bummer. Over time, while in the job search, I was able to kind of get myself together, and I did find a couple of jobs that were really, really great. And now I'm able to do some more things that I find really enjoyable, work that's meaningful, while at the same time working with some of my own coaching clients that I've gotten over the past couple of months. So this has kind of turned out in a good way, although there were a lot of points where I felt like really, really bad because of the kind of mistakes and failure that I felt like I was coming up against. I think that when you have failures like this, where, like you make a mistake, but it impacts you, that feels bad, but it, doesn't feel as bad as when you make a mistake and you cause harm to another person. Sometimes when you have a goal or a dream, you can get very short-sighted and can really just get focused on accomplishing that goal. And I think at the same time, I mentioned my neurodivergence a lot because it's important. I can get very one-track minded with things. So if I get really excited about something, I will like only think about that and only care about that and forget that anything else in the world exists. This can be exciting and helpful sometimes, but sometimes it can be problematic. While I was focusing so hard on pursuing my dream, I realized that I was kind of bulldozing my wife, Amanda. I was just so focused on kind of like what I wanted that I didn't really listen to a lot of the things that she was saying to me. I was just really hard-headed, honestly. It ended up hurting her in a lot of ways and hurting the family in general. So I had to be really honest with her and apologize about how ridiculous I was being over the past year, and I'm glad that she's gracious enough to forgive me and everything. But it really is important to talk to the person that you've harmed, to be honest about what you did, to be clear about the mistakes that you made, and take full ownership and responsibility. I see way too often people just not really knowing how to own up to the mistakes that they made. It's okay to say, hey, I fucked up, I made a mistake, this is why I made the mistake. And kind of leave the ball in their court. Forgiveness is not a requirement either. That's just kind of an important side note, I think. Another area where I feel like I caused harm was that I realized that even on this channel, I had been sharing beliefs and endorsing beliefs that I really do believe are harmful. I will be making more videos in the future detailing some of those beliefs very directly, but for now I just kind of wanted to own up to this. When I started realizing that my beliefs were not necessarily helpful, I first kind of like had to wrestle with them on my own and kind of like come to terms with what I actually believed before I would do anything else. And I felt shameful about falling into those beliefs. I felt stupid for kind of like trusting other people with what I should be believing instead of like trusting myself at the time. And I was frustrated because I felt like I was trying to do something good, you know, and like share wisdom with other people with like about spirituality and stuff like that. But I think that I might have unintentionally kind of taught some things that I really don't believe in anymore. So I'm here to kind of just be open and honest and say that I do not believe in spirituality and religion the way that I did like 2 months ago. So if we're going to be technical about my beliefs, I'm technically an atheist because I, no longer really believe in a mystical higher power the way that I used to. But a label that might more neatly reflect my beliefs is more of a spiritual naturalist. I will talk more about that in future videos. I'll be talking more about my beliefs in just a couple moments, but I think that it's important to kind of like think about how to heal from this. The only realistic option for healing is acceptance. I've been learning this from nature. Things really just are the way that they are. Things happen. We just harm others. We can't change that fact. It's kind of a part of being alive. The thing is, like, what we can do is we can change the way that we treat ourselves after we do make mistakes and after we do cause harm. We can change the way that we interact with others, the way that we take responsibility and accountability after we do make those mistakes. So part of me doing my part in reducing harm is by sharing where I feel like I've misled you as the viewers, and being honest and upfront about it, and moving forward from this point with honesty and integrity. In the future, you may notice some of my older videos getting taken down. I might be taking them down, or disclaimers being added to the titles of video or to the descriptions. I'm just sharing that my beliefs might have changed, or saying which ones of my beliefs I might not believe anymore. Like I said, I think that it's really important for me to share with you some of what I do believe right now. Obviously, like I said, I'm going to get more into it in the future, but here are just a couple of the things that I think will help you understand just like where I'm at right now in terms of spirituality. What I do believe is that we are all connected, but we're connected because we're just part of this universe. I believe that like the universe is like one giant organism, and we are kind of like a part of that larger organism, just like our cells are really important, but those cells are made up of individual atoms, right? But it's all a part of this one organism. So that's how I feel like we're all connected to each other and to nature. I have recently been having a really big issue with people just talking about like quantumly connected or quantum this and quantum that around spirituality. And I'm really discovering that there's a lot of pseudoscience that's kind of been embedded into those things. I will definitely be making videos about that in the future, but yeah, I just wanted to say that quantum mysticism stuff might be a little bit sketchy. Another thing that I believe is that your thoughts don't create your reality. I believe that we create our reality through, intentional action. Our reality is just the way that it is. We don't really have control over it. I think that sometimes people believe that your thoughts, have an ability to kind of like connect to other things and like bring it towards you. And on like kind of like a scientific level, like our brains do kind of like emit vibrations or energy waves or something like that, but it's literally like it's so minuscule, like the amount that we produce, that it can't affect anything like in the natural world. I do think that like having positive thinking sometimes can really help you achieve your goals, but I don't necessarily think that it's like a magical thing necessarily. I also believe that I matter. I'm important because I belong to this bigger system, and not just because I'm on some type of divine mission, or that I'm here to raise the vibration of the earth, or that I'm here to save souls or anything like that. I believe that my purpose in life is to learn how to be human, learn how to connect deeply to my body, learn to understand the inner workings of my mind, to have amazing experiences, to connect with other human beings, to connect to other organisms, and to connect to nature overall. I also believe that my purpose is to observe, learn from, and reflect nature in ways that feel most authentic to me. I also believe that it's important to engage in rituals to improve my mental health, or rituals that kind of influence my psyche to help me move towards my goals. These beliefs actually feel really secure for me. They feel really freeing. I feel like I have had a desire for certainty before, but I'm kind of learning to relinquish that, now understanding that it really isn't promised, that I don't really know everything, and that's kind of a part of being alive and being a human being. Overall, dealing with mistakes and failure is really just a normal part of life. I really like to think about our early animal ancestors and how they were literally required to kind of learn quickly from their mistakes. Okay, if like a deer saw their dear friend get eaten by a lion, and they were just like sitting there thinking over and over and ruminating about what just happened and processing and stuff like that, like they wouldn't survive. They would just die, like they had to kind of act quickly and learn quickly from what's going on around them and make adjustments. The thing is, like, we have these massive, beautiful brains, these large frontal cortexes that allow us to think, and that's incredible. We can't stop our brains from thinking. So it's important to show ourselves compassion when we make mistakes or when we ruminate or anything like that. And compassion is really important here, and compassion really means to recognize suffering and be able to take action towards alleviating it. This means like being able to be aware of the places in our life where we are really struggling and being able to learn how to meet our needs and alleviate the pain that we're in. Another thing that's important to develop here is self-trust. I really do believe that this is essential because at the end of the day, you are the one who has to make these decisions. I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I have been prone to relinquish trust to other people. I really do believe that a lot of this is based on my religious trauma, being taught that trusting myself was unsafe, was even sinful, and to relinquish trust to either God or to other Christian leaders. So it's very easy for me to get scared of making the wrong decision and then quickly kind of like throwing my power to someone else so that kind of I can take the pressure off of myself, honestly. But now I'm realizing that I really have to kind of actually start to do the things that I want to do. You build self-trust by starting to act out of your own will, and using your intellect to be able to make those difficult decisions. It's really important that you don't listen to people who tell you not to think. Oftentimes they will kind of like really fluff it up and make it seem nice by telling you just to trust your heart or to just follow your intuition. And I would really do believe that those are really great things to do, but we can't rely on our intuition alone. I think that we have to use our intuition along with rationality, collecting evidence. Otherwise, we might make some pretty crappy decisions. For example, if there are two seemingly, very similar houses on the market, and you just, have these two houses and you look at them and you just pick them based off of a gut feeling, you could pick a really great house, but you also could pick a house with like massive termite damage, and you could be literally purchasing a lemon or something like that. So it's important to do research, right? And not just make a decision based on what feels right all the time. So yeah, building reasoning skills is really important. I really like to kind of like go based off of the vibe and go based off of the feeling. And I think that that's really good, but it's not the only important thing. I'm really not going to lie to you. A lot of this process really just sucks. And a lot of life does overall. The thing is, we have to be willing to learn from our mistakes and failures, and there is a chance that we might be better for doing that. It's also really important to mention that this doesn't always happen. Sometimes we make really big mistakes, mistakes that harm us, mistakes that harm others, and there isn't like a positive, bright side to it. Sometimes we just make really big mistakes and there's, nothing to learn. It just stinks. Obviously, the situation that I'm in right now had some pretty big consequences, I would say, but I do feel like I'm in a better place right now overall. In a practical sense, there were a lot of really good things that happened this year. We were able to move into a house, and I have this nice, cute little office. I get to work from home, which is really nice. I have, officially started my coaching business this year, and I'm seeing clients, and I get to be a freelance therapist and also do what I love in that way. I'm also feeling much more grounded in reality. If any of you are really deep into spirituality, you probably know what I mean by being kind of like disconnected. If any of you know what it feels like to get really, really up into your higher chakras and feel very disconnected from reality, I spent a lot of time there this year, and that's pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie. But where I'm at right now, I feel much more grounded, much more connected to reality overall. In a lot of ways, I actually feel way more connected to myself over this year. Obviously, I got top surgery this year, which was super helpful in that area, but I've also just really learned how to listen to myself and listen to my needs and acknowledge my neurodivergence and all of these different things that I really needed to do to be healthier and to connect more to my body. And another thing is that I feel way more connected to my wife, being honest with her about the places where I feel like I've made mistakes, and also being less obsessed with my goals and dreams and stuff like that means I feel more connected to where I'm at right now, and I can just be connected to my wife, and we can hang out together and have a good time. I'm also like doing a lot more to really listen to her needs instead of just paying attention to what I need, which is like super important for the success of any relationship. And I've also just discovered how important it is to be, filled with gratitude. There really is so much that I'm grateful for, and realizing how many moments of gratitude that there can be in a day has been really helpful. Whether it's just me having a moment to myself to stim and like feel really happy, or just walking through my house and finding a plant and just like pausing for a moment and just looking at the plant and connecting with it, or just like stopping throughout the day and like giving my wife a kiss or something. Like those are just moments where I can really just soak up the gratitude and be thankful for what I do have right now. So this year I've learned that you just kind of end up where you end up. I don't have any resolutions for next year. I just want to continue what I'm doing right now. And that looks like slowing down and learning to tend to myself in a more intimate way, learning how to build community with others, and just connecting to the larger universe that I get to be a part of. I really appreciate you sticking up to the end of this video and hanging out with me. If you benefited from anything in this video, please take a second to like the video, and go over to Buy Me a Coffee to support the channel over there if you have the means. Don't forget to leave me a comment talking about the areas where you feel like you've made mistakes this year, and how you're learning to be gentle to yourself. I really do appreciate you so much for watching. Peace and love. I'll see you next year.